Hey everybody. First I wanted to say thank you for all the new subscribers. Thank you to all you guys. Thanks for watching the videos. Make sure to like, leave a comment, and give it a share if you enjoyed the video. Today I wanted to talk about stories and the purpose in our lives, the purpose of stories in our lives, where they fall, and the new stories that we're seeing in the world. That's new stories, not news stories. Well, I'm going to tell a couple stories, so this one might be a little bit longer than normal. But I wanted to tell about how I sort of came to this realization. It's been a long process of something building and sort of puzzle pieces falling together. But I remember when I was in my first year of college and I went away from home, and coming back home on my first visit, at the college, we had a common room TV, but I did not have my own TV, and I would be in there sometimes and watch some sport events and stuff, but mainly I was doing things with other people outside of buildings and whatnot. So I didn't watch a lot of TV throughout my years in college, but it was different for that first semester where it was a change for me. And I came home, and even on just walking into my house from the entryway, you could see the TV and it was on. And I remember in that first time when I got home and I was visiting with my family, the show Modern Family was playing. And I had never watched Modern Family. I didn't know the characters. I wasn't invested in them. I wasn't interested particularly in the story. But throughout the evening, my eyes just kept moving to the TV. And I noticed it. I was like, I don't want to watch this, but just subconsciously, my eyes are gravitating over there and fixing on it and absorbing it. I'm listening. And that's when I first started to realize that from the way things are filmed, the cuts that they make, the movements that people are making, to the way that the stories are written, the way that there's always some sort of drama unfolding, the way characters interact moment to moment is all geared to get and keep attention. So I noticed that. It made me a little bit uncomfortable, but I didn't make a vow against it. But I didn't watch much TV throughout college, and really haven't much since. I'd still watch movies and whatnot. But then there was another summer in the middle of my college experience when I was home, and Skyrim came out that year. And my brother had got it. And I played video games before college, not in college, but before college to some degree. Not as much as many others, but some. And I played Skyrim that summer, and I played it incessantly. I was just hooked in. That was my kind of game. And I specifically remember several incidents. One of them was, and this is when it really started dawning on me that this is a problem. I got on the game, 10 a.m.-ish, played all day, got off sometime around 6, 7, maybe 8 o'clock to eat some food, which I hadn't done all day. And my brother got on, and he played for a couple hours. He had something to do the next day. So he got off after a few hours, went to bed, and I got back on at, 9:30, 10 o'clock at night. And I played till the sun came up. And when I finally turned off the console and I went into the bathroom, my hands were shaking, my face was greasy, my skin was pale, and I was like, oh man. It was so good, but it was so bad at the same time. And then, what really broke it for me though was when I started to dream as though I was in a video game. I had a waypoint in my dreams, and I was like, nope, this is a problem. Need to stop this. I really like my dreams, and I'm really defensive of them. So then I broke off that intense habit that I had. And again, there was a long break, many years, but at one point I had some time between jobs, and I got sucked in. My roommate had a console, and I got sucked into the game Horizon Zero Dawn. And yeah, that game sucked me in, and I played it like crazy. And so I had these experiences, and I was like, okay. And I started to think about it, and I was like, why are these so addicting? And I realized sort of why over time. And I realized it was because, well, there's a basic insight that is even proven in some psychological studies where whether it's movies, TV, video game, your psychology, your brain doesn't make a distinction between the character you're watching and yourself. You identify with the character, and then you experience what that character experiences. You feel their emotions, you react to their struggles in the same way that they would react, or in a very similar way. And so we identify with it. We enter the story. The story becomes ours. We adopt it. And so, okay, that brings it through to the video game. Well, a video game, you're living a story. You get into a story. But in a video game story, I mean, take Skyrim, for example. In the matter of hours, you can get most of the way to being an absolute master blacksmith, right? You can like conquer a territory. You can liberate a territory from the oppression of monsters in an hour. You can conduct like a full-scale military campaign single-handedly, by the way, and become a master archer. All these things that would take at minimum months, but in most cases years in real life. You can get through them in an hour, a couple hours playing a game, and those hours fly by. There's always something next to do. Something next, something rewarding, something meaningful. So I understood that. I understood how it was like hyper reality. It was concentrated. They're the same goals that you would have in life, but they're just easier and faster. And so you get the same rewards just without all the hard work. But it's not boring, right? You're engaged. So, all your problems are solved and your problems are taken away. All your challenges are solved and the problems, the annoyingnesses are taken away. So, okay, I understood that. Video games, yeah, makes sense. And that's not to say video games are evil, it's just to understand what they are. They're this concentrated experience. They're the same sort of archetype, just squeezed down and concentrated. So of course they're rewarding in the same way life is rewarding. They're playing off the same circuits, and so it's a lot easier to get the rewards out of the video game than life. So there's a temptation there, right? That's what I'm saying. Well, okay, so that's video games. But this understanding has really broadened over the years, and I'm going to tell you about how that happened and how it's extended. A couple years ago, many years ago now, I guess, I started getting back into the world of reading fiction. And eventually I found my way to the Kingkiller Chronicles, The Name of the Wind, and The Wise Man's Fear. And man, those books sucked me in like books have not done in a very long time. It was like they were alive. There was a life force to them. There was a reality. Reading them was living them. I was there, It's like from the never-ending story. Have you been that character? Have you been Captain Nemo in the deep? Have you been Robinson Crusoe crossing swords, right? You live it. You live it when it's a good story. And that's what those stories were for me. I mean, part of it is down to Rothfuss's writing. He's a very good writer. But part of it is the archetypal story and the sort of archetypal fantasy setting and all that. That's all part of it. But I was like, there's something more. Like, this is alive. Why is this alive? Why is it so engrossing to me? Because not only did I enjoy it, but I would go to sleep thinking about it. Even if I knew it was happening, even rereading it, the scenes are just playing through my mind. And, I didn't want to put it down. I want to keep reading it, but I also don't want to finish it because I know there's that grief that's going to come when I finish it. And then there's like a lack in my life when I don't have this story that is enlivening me, right? So, okay, what's going on here? There's something more here than just good writing and an enjoyable genre for me. And I realized, this is how I came to the realization, is that you cannot write a mundane story. You can't even include mundane elements in your story. And what I mean specifically by that, you can include things and you can say they are mundane. You can mention your character doing laundry, brushing their teeth, going to the bathroom, whatever it might be, the humdrum everyday things. And you can say that they are humdrum. You can convey the fact that this is a really stretching and toilsome, drudgery-filled period of their life. But you cannot make the reader experience the mundaneness without ruining the story. Nobody reads a book to have the experience of mundaneness. You can comment on the mundaneness is there, but if you make the experience mundane, you have just destroyed your story. So stories can't be mundane by definition, or by practice, whatever you would call that, by necessity. So that means that stories have that same sort of quality of video games. It's not quite as intense because there's not the same level of interaction, though it can get pretty close if you have an active imagination as I do. But it's not exactly the same as a video game where you're choosing the path and you're interacting at each moment. That's for sure. But it does have that same concentrated essence of you are sort of getting all the high points and your distance from all the low points. And again, I want to be specific about that. Yes, stories can be sad and still engaging. I'm not talking about low points in that sense. I actually read a book that was all high points, and it was not a good book. So I got into sci-fi several years ago, and I read the Thrawn trilogy from Star Wars, and that's fantastic writing. That's a great book, peak sci-fi, real quality. And then I read Revan. I can't remember the author's. I can't pronounce the author's last name, but Revan, the book Revan. And it was like reading a video game. Literally all action all the time, all high points. It was entertaining, sure, but it wasn't a good book. So what I mean by all high points is like all not mundane, all meaningful, all purposeful. You're going from purpose to purpose to purpose. And even if those moments, there's pain, there's heartbreak, there's tragedy, there's loss, there's a beauty in that we resonate with. And the fact that we resonate with the character itself is beautiful in a way. It can be abused for sure. It can lead you down a bad path if you just obsess over that and dwell in it and you're sort of obsessed with that feeling and cultivating it. That can be bad. But my point is, even when stories have those sad parts, those dark parts, those hard parts, they are still high points in the sense of plot, in the sense of meaning, in the sense of their purpose in the story, and you're moving through the story. So you have this concentrated essence of experience. And take this a step further, as I've realized, and I argue, and I think convincingly in the book that I wrote and I did the podcast about purpose and form, we are living a story. Our life is a story. I think that's undeniable. Well, it's deniable, obviously, but I think it is true despite our denial. So if we are living a story, then stories we tell and stories we interact with are like concentrated life. It's the same thing as life, but it's concentrated. It's whittled down, and you get all the parts about life that make you realize why you love life, and you edit out or distance get a little bit of distance from all the humdrum stuff. So that is revealing in itself. It's interesting. It also comes with a little bit of warning, but I'll tell you why this came to a head for me recently. Over the past couple years, from time to time, I've said, you know what, I could use a break. I've kept up a pretty rigorous reading routine. Not top of the line, not necessarily better than anyone else, but more than maybe most people. Most people who aren't readers, I mean. And I'm just like, you know what, maybe I just want to relax for a bit. And basically I've downloaded an app. The first couple years it was Candy Crush. I played Candy Crush for a week or whatever, and was just absorbed by it. I was like, whoa, having gone from not doing anything like that at all to have it, it's world changing. Like, wow, this is engrossing and addicting. It's just this little simple game. But this year I branched out a bit, and I tried a few apps, but I settled on one for a little while called King Shot. And basically it's, sort of the world building, territory building, kind of like Skyrim, medieval stuff, fantasy setting. And I was sucked into it. It was like, I'd sit down and be like, okay, I'm gonna do this for a while. And then 3-4 hours go by. I'm like, I should probably get up and do something else, but let me just do this one. And then just sucked in. And it's not hard to see why. I mean, you've got the purpose of sort of the main story of building the area, and there's always something to do with that. There's always a new objective. There's always something feels productive that you could be productive for that world that you could be doing. And then they've always got a little something popping up in a corner that you can click on and interact with and get points for. So I realized, like, man, these things are just optimized at this point. This is just completely optimized to grab your attention and keep it. And it was working, I'll tell you that. Video games, I can still sort of see, this is the reason why I prefer movies and still watch a lot of movies relative to anything else. Movies over TV shows is because a movie is telling you an encapsulated story. There's a specific endpoint that you're getting to. And hopefully the goal of the movie is to tell a good story. With a TV show, there's not necessarily a prescribed endpoint. It's just kind of like, let's keep things going and keep viewers as long as we can and produce the drama we need along the way to keep the story rolling. I don't like that. I don't like that dragging on. If I want a story, I want a good story, and so I prefer movies. And then I know what I'm getting into, and I know how long it's going to take. It's the same thing with video games, like the classic ones like Skyrim or Call of Duty or whatever it is. There's a mission, there's a campaign, there's a story that has a specific endpoint. I was always a campaign guy over online competition personally. It's very story driven. So, but the point of that is that's one thing about video games, and it's still arbitrary, but then there's more of like a point to it because you're going through a story. Whereas this King Shot video game and many others, there's literally no end. It's actually just infinite, and they do everything possible to make it and it really works. Like, it seems like there's a point and a purpose, and it's just everything you're doing is towards a purpose, but there's no end. It's just, the point is just to play more. Just perpetual engagement with this. It has all the value that you give to it, and you give a lot of value to it because it's good at extracting that, but it's really purposeless and arbitrary. And so, as happened with all the other ones, I get to a point where after I've downloaded these, I'm like, okay, this is a problem. I'm going to delete this and not have this in my life. And so yeah, I got rid of it after a few days because it was just ridiculously engrossing. So the point of all this is to say we've always had stories. Stories are a concentrated form of life, but good stories have a reflection with our own lives. They reveal things about the story that we're living and help us, in a way, help us through our stories. And that's good. Even those could be a problem if they take over the purpose of your life. But now, through just, starting with cinema and movies, we have this even more engrossing, even more encapsulating storytelling form. And then we get into video games, and there's the interactive bit, and so it's even more engrossing. And now we have optimized video games, like, oh my gosh. And so, yeah, I mean, in a way, good stories are like heroin. They're like a drug. They're concentrated essence of what feels like meaningful and good life. And if that's true of good stories and some good video games, maybe the optimized video games we have nowadays are like fentanyl, right? They're killer. You jump into them and you're in like a different dimension than you used to be when you go into those kind of things. So that's really evident for someone who abstains from all that and dips my toe in occasionally nowadays. And the point is, stories are good. Our life is a story. But we are living a mundane story, and there's a purpose to that. There's a purpose in the mundaneness. There's a purpose to the necessary endurance. There's a purpose to, well, the slow dopamine approach rather than the quick dopamine approach. The story, the cadence of the story of our life is purposeful. It's meaningful. It's good. And we're being pulled away from that cadence. It's hard to maintain what you might call the natural cadence of life, the human cadence of life, let's say. It's hard to maintain that nowadays. And part of that is from the concentrated stories that were offered and that give us the opportunity to escape and live in a faster cadence of story. And this is kind of the test, right? Well, stories can be good and they can help you live your purpose, live the fullest of your story that you can. Stories are absolutely beneficial for that. I'm not saying anything bad about stories, even maybe anything bad about video games. Learning how games work is a valuable thing because it does teach you truths about the world. But if your own purpose in life gets sidelined to adopting the purpose of just having the experience of what looks like good purpose paraded in front of you and what seems like your participation in it, but it's all a similitude, a simulation, you might say. Yeah, if it's taking away, if it's distracting, if it's hindering you in your purpose, then it's hindering you in your purpose, and your life has a purpose, and that should be the prime purpose, not something that's taking a back seat to manufactured purposes that are delivered to you on demand. Thank you, Dog Nose. So this last series of episodes I'm uploading, I say last because it's the podcast that we did on the end of my book. So it's not the last ones that I'm going to be uploading. It's not the last podcast that we're doing, but it's the last ones on this book. And there's been a lot in the book about archetypes and Jungianism and stories and purpose. That's sort of the main themes of the whole book. And it gets fully orbed and commented on in these last videos. And so I thought this would be a good companion video to those, where we're talking about how we live with purpose, how we see ourselves as storied beings, and some of the modern impediments to that. Those are all things I comment on in the upcoming videos, so stay tuned for those. Check out some of the old videos, some of those comment on them. There's the archetypal position of human life or human being, the archetypal human position, I think it is. There is the mindset of heroic purpose, and many others in that vicinity that are commenting on similar things. Other interesting videos, I'm sure. Take a poke around the channel, check it out, leave like, comment, subscribe, and if you really would, give the video a share with someone you know who will like it. Thanks for watching. Thanks again to all the new subscribers, and let's keep going. I'll see you next time. God bless, and live in your story, not in a fake story. Enjoy stories, but your story is to be enjoyed, and I hope you will.